Hey fellow problem solvers, Colfax Math here. Today's video is going to be all about percents. These are key skills for any standardized test, whether it's a military entrance exam, a union entrance exam, a promotion. Percents, fractions, decimals are a big piece of it. In this video, we're going to convert percent to decimal, convert fraction to percents, find the percent of a number, discount calculations, profit calculations, interest and tax calculations. Make sure you have a notebook with you, a notebook out in front of you, and a pencil, and take notes in all of this. This is mostly a walkthrough. Try and pause the video, do the problems by yourself, then unpause the video and watch how I do it. This isn't really a walkthrough test. This is really much more of an overview of percents. So before we even get started, let me just talk about what a percent is. We really have three things. We have a fraction, represented with a numerator over a denominator, part of the whole. That could be converted to a decimal, 0.50, or that could be converted to a percent, 50%. So the way I remember going from decimal to percent is this thing's like an arrow and it's saying shoot it over 1, 2 places. So you start right here at 50, to go to a decimal is 1, 2, and it gives you 0.50. All right, let's go ahead and convert percent to decimals. We'll go to the next screen. Number one, convert percent to decimal. Here it is, 8%. It looks like this. It's an 8, which means there's no decimal there. The decimal will be right there. So 8% is, say, shoot that over 1, 2 places to give you 0.08. So that's how you take it. You go from right where it is, 1, 2, to give you 0.08. The other way to look at 8% is every percent is of the 100. So 8% is 8 of 100. So I'll cover this up with 25%. Go over 1, 2, 0.25, or 25 100ths. This one's a little trickier. 0.5%, you got to go over 1, 2. So it's going to be 0.005 or 0.5 of 100. Right here, 9 1/4, we got to take that 1/4, convert it to a percentage. 1/4 is 25, right? So I have 9.25. That's the decimal equivalent of that percent, 9.25%. Move it over 2 places, 1, 2. That's going to give us 0.0925 or 9.25 parts of 100. Pause the video, knock these 4 right here out, and then check them against mine. This is 0.06 is a decimal, 0.65. Right here we got to go over 1, 2. There's nothing to go there, so it has to be a 0. So this one's going to be 0.0303. Again, I'll cover this up. This is 12 1/2. I convert that to a decimal, 12.5. So this one right here is 12.5%. Move it over 1, 2, 0.125, 0.125. All right, now what we're doing is we have decimals and we're going back to a percent. If a percent to decimal is over to the left 1, 2, decimal of percent, I got to move it the opposite direction. So I'm going to go over 1, 2, and it'll be right there. So 0.6 is 60%. Right here I go over 1, 2, and I get 0.9%. 4/5, that's not a decimal, it's a fraction. I got to convert that to a decimal first. A couple ways to do that. I could just multiply this by 2 over 2, right? That thing is 1, so multiplying by 1 doesn't change the value of it. That's going to give me 8/10. And then 8/10 is the same thing as 80 100ths, or 0.80. To go over this way, 1, 2, is going to give me 80%. 5/30 is going to be a little trickier. The way I'm going to do 5/30 is I got to think of this fraction right here, 5/30 is falling over. So I got 30. It falls over into 5. It won't go into 5, so I got to put a decimal there and then add a 0. It'll go into 50 one time. So 30 goes right there. 50 minus 30 is 20. Bring down the next 0. 30 goes into 200 6 times to get 180. 20 left over. Another 200, 1.16. So this is 0.16 as a decimal. To go to a percent, I go over 1, 2, and I get 16%. 16% right there. All right, I'll stand in front of these answers right here, pause the video, go ahead and knock these 4 out, and then I'll read the answers. All right, 3/4, again, a fraction from the fraction to the decimal. 3/4, maybe you recognize as 75 or 0.75 is a decimal. If you don't, the way you could divide that out is you could say 4, that fraction falls over that way. 4 into 3, it doesn't go into 3, so I put a decimal there. 4 into 30 is 7, right? That's going to give me 28. That decimal goes up there. 30 minus 28 is 2. Bring down the next 0. 4 into 20 is 5 times. So I'm converting that fraction to that decimal. Then to go in a percent, I go 1, 2, and get 75%. Those 3 things are all equivalent. Fractions, 3/4, decimal, 0.75, 75%. 0.067 over 1, 2, 6.7%. 1, 2, 230%. 740 is same thing. I got to figure out the decimal equivalent of that. 40 into 7. Doesn't go into 7, so I put a 0 there. Goes into 70 once. 30, bring down the next 0. 40 into 300. 7 is 280. 20 left over, I could keep going. Or right from there, I could go over 1, 2 and get 17%. Okay, 4% of 250. So now what we're doing is we're multiplying percents by whole numbers and by fractions and by dollar amounts. So the first thing I have to do to multiply a percent by a number is take that 4%, go over that first skill we learned, conversion to a decimal. At 4, I go over 1, 2, and I get 0.04. So I have 250 times 0.04. That's long multiplication. I can multiply it all out, or I could just think about this a little bit too and say 4 times 25 is 100. So 100 is almost half of that, so it can't be 100. It's more like a decimal place less, more like 10. So you could start to work on that in your head, but if not, it's a long multiplication like this. To do this, 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 5 is 20. Carry the 2. 4 times 2 plus 2 is 10. Then these are all zeros. And then when I multiply here, I count up the total number of places the decimal is over to the left, right? So that would be 250.0. So that's not over at all, but this decimal place is 1, 2. 2 places over, so I go over 1, 2, and that gives me 10 even. So 0.7% of 400, that's going to be pretty small, right? Because this is over 1, 2, 0.007. So that's going to give me 0.0028. Then my decimal place is over 1, 2, 3. I go over 1, 2, 3, and I get 2.8. 35% of 128, same thing. That's going to give me 44.8. Decimal place is over 1. 0.35 times 128. Then this is everything combined here, right? I have a fraction as a percent. So first I got to convert that 1/5 into a decimal. 1 over 5 is 10 over 50 or 20 over 100, right? So 1/5 is 15.2. 1/5 is that 0.2. 0.2, that 15.2 times 625, and that's going to give me $95. And as I think about it, right, 15%, you know, it's going to be less than a quarter. A quarter would be 150, so not quite half of that. So that seems like a ballpark number there. Okay, now we're doing percent of a number, 3% of 300. Of always means multiply. So again, a couple steps. Got to take that 3%, convert it into a decimal. 3 goes over 1, 2. So it's 300 times 0.03. That's going to give me 0.009. Decimal place is over 1, 2. So it's going to give me 9 even. That kind of makes about sense. I won't do all of these. I'll just do the first couple and let you do the next couple. 0.25%. To go to a decimal, I got to go over 1, 2. So that means I'm going to have 40,000 times 0.0025. 5 times 0, 0, 0, 20. Placeholder. 2 times 0, 0, 0, 0, 8. I don't have to do the zeros because 0 times anything will be 0. I'm going to add these together. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 10. I got to count up my decimal places. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to give me 100. So 0.25% of 40,000 is 100. Pause the video, do these two, see if you get them right. 20.5 of 4,000 is 820. Again, you got to go fraction conversion to 25.25. Turn it into a decimal, 0.2525 times 800. You should have got 202. Okay, here's a good problem. Here you see a lot of these in standardized tests. A number is what percent of another number. So what you're looking for is what part is it. So 25 is what percent of 200. Good way to set that up as a fraction. 25 is what part of 200. You could convert that to a decimal. You could do that a couple ways. You could do that long division I showed you, or you could just cut this in half, right? Half of 200 is 100. Half of 25 is 12.5. Once I have that 12.5, to turn it into a decimal, I go over 1, 2 because of the 100. That gives me 0.125. Turn it into a percent, I go over 1, 2 to get 12.5%. Okay, you go ahead and do this one right here. 150 is what percent of 5,000? You set that up as a fraction. 150 is what percent of 5,000? Do that long division. I'll go ahead and do that long division and show you how to do it this way. Remember, this fraction's falling over that way, right? So I got 5,000 into 150. Well, 5,000 doesn't go into 150, so I got to put a decimal there, add a 0, 5,000 into 1,500 still doesn't go in there, so I got to add another 0. 5,000 into 15,000 will be 3, right? And it's going to be 3 even. That decimal's right here. That decimal goes up. I need that placeholder of a 0 there. That gives me 0.03. Go to a percent, 1, 2, gives me 3%. Okay, a number is what percent of another number. Here's a couple more examples. Again, pause the video, cover those so you can't see them. Do those two problems. Okay, 200 is what percent of 80,000? I'm just going to write that out. 200 over 80,000, right there. I could just start canceling zeros out. So I cancel 1 0. Cancel another 0. Now I got 2 over 800. I'm going to cut that in half to get 1 over 400, right? That's the same thing as 2 over 800. And I got to convert that into a decimal, then into a percent. So I'm saying 400 into 1, fraction falling over this way. 400 doesn't go into 1. So I put my decimal there. 400 doesn't go into 10. Doesn't go into 100. It goes into 1,000 2 times, right? So it goes, 400 goes into 1,000 2 times, so give me 800. 200 right here, bring down the next 0. 400 into 2,000 is 5. So I have 0.0025, or as a percent, I go over 1, 2 to get 0.25%. And then the second problem, hopefully you paused the video and got it, and you got 35%. It's kind of a long one right here. Word problem, 20 ounces of a drink mixture contain 20% fruit juice and 80% water. So I got 20%, I'm going to turn that into a decimal, fruit juice, 80% water as a decimal. It is further diluted by adding another 20 ounces of water, right? So I got another 20 ounces of water. So maybe the best way to go back and do this one is to figure out how much I have. So I'm going to do 20% of 20 ounces, right? 20% of 20 ounces, 0.2 times 20 is going to give me 4 ounces. 0.8 times 20 is going to give me 16 ounces. So this is 4 ounces of fruit juice, 16 ounces of water. It is further diluted by adding 20 ounces of water. So I got another 20 ounces of water on here. What is the percent of fruit juice in the new diluted mixture? So it is going to be 4 ounces of fruit juice out of the total of 20 plus 20. So out of the total of 40, I can reduce that fraction to 1/10. 1/10 is the same thing as 0.1. And then I take that and I convert it into a percentage and I go over 1, 2, and that's going to give me 10%. Okay, what is the reduced price of a $60 raincoat after a discount of 10%, 10%, and 30%? So that means we've got 3 separate problems. The first is reducing the price 10%. 10% is 0.1, right? So 10% of 60 is $6. So the first time I reduce it, the price now goes down to $54, right? I reduce it by 10%. That's going to give me $6. 60 minus that 6 gives me the 54. The second problem is reduce it another 10%. So I got to multiply this by 0.1. That's going to give me $5.40. The next reduction is $5.40. So 54 minus the 540 gives me 48.60. And then a brand new problem reduces it another 30%. So I take 30 times that 48.60. So 0.3 times 48.60 gives me that 14.58. That price minus the discount gives me the final amount right there. Discount calculation, a shirt normally costs $25.50. How much do you need to pay if it's purchased at a 20% discount? Pause the video, knock that one out, and then you should get $20.40 on that. Okay, here's an interest calculation. This is called simple interest. Evelyn has made a deposit of $15,000 in a bank at an annual simple interest rate of 7%, pretty high. How much will she gain in total to the nearest dollar if she does not touch it for 5 years? So our equation is this right here. Interest is equal to principal, the amount you put in, times the rate times the time. So the principal amount is $15,000. The rate is 7%. So I convert that to a decimal, 0.07. The time is 5 years. So the interest earned is going to be that $15,000 times the 0.07 times the 5 to give you $52.50. So how much will she have at the end? It'll be her original principal amount of $15,000 plus the interest earned of $52.50 to give her a total of $20,250. Okay, next one right here. I'll give you a practice problem. I'll cover up the answer. You got $4,000 in the bank at 5% interest. How much interest will you earn after 2 years? Pause the video and get that answer. All right, hopefully you got 4,000 times 0.05 times 2 to get $400 in interest. So interest earned is $400. And then you could see the principal and the interest, you'll have $4,400 at the end of those 2 years. Okay, a few more to go. Tax calculations. Sean purchased a shirt for $22.05. The sales tax is 5%, obviously not California. What was the total price of the shirt? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that percent, convert it to a decimal, 1, 2, to get 0.05. I'm going to take the selling price, $22.05, times the tax rate of 0.05, multiply through long division. 5 times 5 is 25, carry the 2. 5 times 2 is 10, carry the 1. 5 times 2 is 10, plus the 1, 11. And what I have to do here is I got to figure out how far over my decimal is. So I'm over 1, 2, 3, 4. So I got 4 places, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's $1.10. And then I'm going to take the original price of $22.05 plus that $1.10 to get a total price of $23.15 with the tax. All right, a couple more to go. All right, pause the video right here and do this problem. Price of a new car is $25,000 and sales tax rate is 6.5%. What's the total cost of the car? Pause the video and get it done. And then you're going to move this over 1, 2 to get 0.065 times that 25,000. Add that tax amount to the 25,000 to get 26,625. Okay, here's one on profit calculation. A shopkeeper buys a box of candies for $20 and sells it for $25. So the way you're going to figure out profit is the amount of profit, the sale minus purchase price. So you're going to start with that. You're selling it for $25, you bought it for $20. That's going to give you $5 profit. So it's the profit over the purchase price. So you bought it for $20. So you got 5 over 20. You got to convert that to a decimal. That is, you could reduce that 5/20ths, right? Because 5 will go into here 1 time, 5 goes in here 4 times. You can see that fraction's a quarter, and then a quarter is the same as 0.25 or 25%. So that's 25% profit on that box of candy. All right, well, hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions at all, please post them in the comments and I'll answer them as soon as I can. This is to help you on any standardized math test. The way to do well on standardized math tests is you got to do a lot of practicing. Practice, practice, practice. Do problems before I do them, and then check your work against mine. A great app to go to is .asvabtutoring.com. That could walk you through an ASVAB math test. A lot of good resources there. All right, thank you for watching.